Hey, I'm Devin. Sorry about the different background. I'm in the barracks right now for a couple more months, and then I get to go home and see the wife. But until then, you have to deal with the mustache. What if we're missing out on the full scope of what the Lord is offering us in the Word of Wisdom? When we first think about Doctrine and Covenants, section 89, we usually go to the no coffee, alcohol, tea, tobacco. In fact, I had a mission companion. I'm straying off script right now, but when we were to teach the Word of Wisdom, he would always bring up, he'd say, would you ever eat 2 live cats? And they go, no. He's like, well, good. CATS is an acronym. He talks about coffee, alcohol, tea, tobacco, and substances that are illegal or addictive. And I just thought it was such a funny way to teach that lesson. But anyway, when we talk about the word of wisdom, I think we always go to those things that are restrictive. And rightly so, because that's the portion that's a commandment. But when we think about how the revelation was first given, none of it was a commandment, remember? It was just a principle of the promise. It was the wisest being in the universe coming down to us and saying, hey, here's some advice on what you put in your body. Take it or leave it. Okay, if you don't do it, no harm, no foul. If you do this, then you'll get these blessings. And they're amazing blessings. Health, stamina, endurance, right? The destroying angel passing over you, hidden treasures of knowledge. Several decades later, a portion of that revelation became a commandment and one of the prerequisites for temple worthiness. I think a lot of members of the church make the mistake thinking, if I keep the commandment portion of the word of wisdom, then I still automatically deserve all the blessings at the end of the word of wisdom. But I'm not sure if that logically flows, because that's just one of several temple commandments to enter the temple. If you keep that portion of the word of wisdom, that's a commandment, and the other commandments in order to go into the temple, you'll get the blessings associated with being worthy to enter the temple. In no way, shape, or form was there a revelation saying only this part is relevant. The non-commandment portion is now irrelevant. That's never been a revelation. A lot of members of the church say, well, that was relevant for their day, but our day is different, so some of these things don't apply. Where does that belief come from other than just opinion? It has to be grounded in some sort of doctrinal, authoritative source. So that's why I reject the idea that it expired somehow. Well, the Revelation, it's 200 years old. Can't possibly be relevant. Well, the Book of Mormon's even older than that. The Bible, that's still relevant. Except for the part of the law of Moses that was fulfilled. So there is no expiration date to God's revelations. In fact, some revelations God gives are temporary, some are permanent. How can we know if it's a temporary one? Well, for example, if he's giving a revelation to a specific person, like Emma Smith, you need to make a hymn book. Does that mean we should all be making our own hymn books? No, it's not our responsibility. But when a revelation is given from a prophet to the entire body, the entire church body, then it remains relevant and in force until another prophet receives a revelation to make a change to the previous revelation. For example, circumcision, polygamy, these are things that can be temporary, and it only stops when the revelation from God comes. So for us to say the non-commandment portion of the word of wisdom is irrelevant, it can't be that way unless the revelation came from a prophet saying so. In the word of wisdom, God says, hey, this is for the weakest of saints, for anyone who could be called a saint. And he says, if you keep these things, A, B, and C, then you get these blessings, X, Y, and Z. So why is it we can say, I'm going to keep C and still get the blessings X, Y, and Z, right? That wasn't the promise. Remember, every blessing is predicated upon obedience to a certain law. That law doesn't have to be a commandment. So this is a law of health, right? A portion of that law of health is a commandment. But if you want the blessings for keeping the law of health, you need to keep the law. So I invite you to experiment like what Alma suggests in Alma 32. Read through the entire section 89 and try to keep all of it as if it's all relevant. And you tell me you don't notice a difference in the blessings promised. I can tell you that the more diligent I am in trying to keep all the word of wisdom, including the non-commandment part, I notice the blessings at the end of section 89 more real in my life.